Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much. Ms. Thompson, the Trump administration recently expressed interest in engaging China on nuclear arms control, but I'm concerned about the Trump administration's approach in that particular case. The administration seems to believe the best way to engage China on nuclear arms control is to push it to join a multilateral agreement with two countries whose nuclear arsenals are of an order of magnitude larger than its own, meaning the United States and Russia, just 10 times larger, 20 times larger than anything that China has right now. So I want to talk about that further. The Chinese foreign minister stated that Beijing will not participate in three-way nuclear talks with the U.S. and Russia. So why does the Trump administration think that it's a viable path forward?
Thank you, Senator. And if I could just build upon the points that Secretary Trachtenberg raised earlier with the importance of having that dialogue with China. I've had dialogues with my Chinese counterparts. I was in Beijing the end of January, the beginning of February, just met a couple weeks ago. Don't hold me to the date, I need to pull my calendar. Up in New York with my Chinese counterpart, we're having that discussion. You know, they want to be a responsible player on the world stage. They want to be part of this great power competition, and with that comes responsibilities. So we have to have that discussion. The important piece is we may not get there, but we may. But we have to have a dialogue. I raised with my counterpart to have a working group, a strategic working group, on some things that we might be able to agree upon. They have declined at that juncture.
So would you be adverse if that just comes to an end, that China will not accept that it is going to engage in those kind of talks? Would you object then to extending New START and separately engaging China on nuclear arms control?
We were just at the first step of our engagement with China for its arms control discussions. In fact, I would say it hasn't even taken a firm first step. Coming back and having the discussions with the leadership on how we want to go forward with that, I think we have an obligation to have those discussions.
Okay, I appreciate that. Does the administration view China's participation or non-participation as relevant to New START's extension?
We recognize that to have a legitimate arms control discussion going forward on next terms of arms control, you have to have China in the mix.
So you're saying that you will not extend the New START treaty unless China participates?
I didn't say that, Senator. I'm saying we're early in the discussions with China. We're in the middle of an interagency discussion on next steps with New START. Know that those discussions are being had, but we haven't reached a conclusion as yet.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that the attempt to move this to multilateral arms control talks with Russia and then adding in China is really a poison pill to provide an excuse for not extending New START. That is my concern. And the reason that I believe that is that when I look at the administration's intent to pull out of the Paris Agreement, the Iran nuclear deal, the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, and the Arms Trade Treaty, that this just follows on part of that pattern. So what confidence can you give us that the Trump administration's never-ending review of New START or new insistence that arms control be multilateralized is not really just an excuse to kill the New START treaty?
Senator, I can assure you, as I stated in September, but can build on that because we had considerable discussion since that point, both with partner and allies and with Russia. Our partners and allies have been very, very clear on who is at fault for the demise of the INF Treaty. I've firm statement from Secretary General, in fact, when he briefed Congress during his visit last month, that Russia is the fault of that. We continue to uphold our obligations. So as the overseer of arms control for the State Department, I'm going to always maintain there are consequences when you don't fulfill your obligation. You call out that party, and that's what we've done with Russia and will continue to do with all parties. Arms control only works if you have a responsible partner on the other side.
And I agree with that, but to the extent to which we have an opportunity to extend the New START treaty, then in my opinion, we should take advantage of that. As President Kennedy used to say, because you cannot make progress on every front does not mean that you should not make progress on any front. So we have an opportunity here with the New START treaty, and that's our principal, nuclear rival, and we have a history of reaching agreements with them. And from my perspective, I think that we should take this opportunity to advance that goal and not allow a China problem which it is, to deter us from reaching that agreement. And that's why I've introduced the SAVE Act to ensure that the United States continue adhering to a functioning bilateral nuclear arms control agreement that is in our national security interest. I just think it makes the most sense, because that's where our biggest problem is, not to say that we shouldn't also engage with China on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.